Gradually, the once-known billionaire and celebrity tenderpreneur Cat Matlala, who's been at the center of several controversies in South Africa, is becoming bankrupt. What just happened to him is even worse than the news of him being transferred to maximum prison. Please watch till the end and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. The decision by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure to terminate the lease agreement involving Medicare 24 Tshwane District represents a significant intervention in a matter that has steadily grown into a test case for procurement governance, interdepartmental accountability, and the protection of state assets. Announced on Friday by Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean Macpherson, the termination follows an internal investigation that concluded the lease was not legally valid from the outset, rendering the entire arrangement untenable under South African law. At the center of the controversy is a hospital facility in Pretoria West, a property that falls under the custodianship of the state and is officially allocated for use by the South African Police Service. According to the findings of the departmental probe, the property was never formally declared surplus by SAPS, a mandatory legal requirement before any state-owned building can be leased to a third party. Without this declaration, the lease could not lawfully take effect, regardless of the intentions or representations of those involved in negotiating the agreement. The termination of the lease has immediate implications not only for Medicare 24 Tshwane District, but also for the broader system of state property management. Under South African legislation governing public assets, the declaration of surplus is a critical safeguard designed to ensure that properties required for core government functions are not improperly alienated or repurposed. In this case, the absence of such a declaration meant that the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure had no legal basis to proceed with the lease, exposing the state to potential financial and legal risks. Macpherson's announcement underscored the seriousness with which his department is now treating the matter. He stated that the action was necessary to protect state assets and to prevent any wastage of public funds. This framing places the termination within a wider policy stance that emphasizes fiscal responsibility and stricter oversight of public resources, particularly in a context where irregular expenditure and procurement failures have eroded public confidence in state institutions over many years. The lease attracted intense scrutiny long before its termination. Opposition lawmakers and sections of the media raised concerns that Medicare 24 had allegedly bypassed standard procurement procedures in securing access to the Pretoria West facility. These allegations suggested that the deal may not have followed transparent and competitive processes, a core requirement for public sector contracts. While the department's internal investigation ultimately focused on the legal status of the property itself, the procurement questions added to the pressure for decisive action. Complicating the issue further is the reported link between Medicare 24 and businessman Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, a figure whose name has become associated with several high-profile controversies involving public sector contracts. Although the precise nature of Matlala's involvement in Medicare 24 has been the subject of dispute and investigation, the association alone was sufficient to elevate political and public interest in the lease. In an environment already sensitive to allegations of state capture and undue influence, any perceived irregularity involving a controversial business figure tends to attract heightened scrutiny. The termination of the lease does not mark the end of the matter. Macpherson has indicated that a broader internal investigation will now be launched to identify officials who may have authorized or facilitated the irregular agreement. This aspect of the announcement is particularly significant, as it signals a shift from merely canceling an unlawful arrangement to actively pursuing accountability within the state machinery. Such investigations have often been criticized in the past for lacking follow-through, making the outcome of this process an important indicator of whether consequences will extend beyond policy statements. The involvement of SAPS as the official user of the property adds another layer of complexity. As the department responsible for declaring the building surplus, SAPS's failure to complete this step raises questions about internal controls and communication between departments. Whether this omission was the result of administrative oversight, miscommunication, or more serious misconduct remains to be established through further inquiry. What is clear is that the breakdown in process created an opening for an unlawful lease to be concluded. Matlala's previous dealings with the state have amplified the significance of the current decision. His company was previously embroiled in controversy over a R$360 million health services contract with SAPS, which was canceled in 2025 amid allegations of corruption, irregular procurement, and poor performance. That contract, like the Medicare 24 lease, became a focal point for concerns about how large sums of public money were being allocated and managed. Parliamentary inquiries and law enforcement interest in those dealings set a precedent that continues to influence how new allegations are perceived. The overlap between the cancelled SAPS Health Services tender and the Pretoria West lease has fueled speculation about systemic weaknesses in procurement governance, particularly within sectors involving security and health services. Both areas are characterized by urgent operational needs, which can sometimes be exploited to justify deviations from standard procedures. The current termination suggests a renewed effort to draw a clear line between operational necessity and legal compliance. From a policy perspective, the case highlights the critical role of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure as the custodian of state property. The department's mandate places it at the intersection of multiple government functions, requiring constant coordination with user departments such as SAPS. When these relationships fail to operate within clearly defined legal frameworks, the risk of irregular transactions increases substantially. The Medicare 24 lease serves as a reminder of how procedural lapses can have far-reaching consequences. The decision also carries political implications. Opposition parties that had raised concerns about the lease are likely to view the termination as validation of their oversight role, while the governing authorities will be under pressure to demonstrate that the promised investigations lead to tangible outcomes. In a climate where public trust in government remains fragile, visible accountability is often as important as corrective action itself. For Medicare 24 Tshwane District, the termination represents a significant setback. Access to a state-owned hospital facility would have provided strategic and operational advantages, particularly in a healthcare environment where infrastructure is a critical constraint. The invalidation of the lease not only disrupts those plans, but also places the company under further scrutiny regarding how it engages with public institutions. Depending on the findings of ongoing investigations, the company's future interactions with the state may be subject to stricter oversight. The broader implications extend beyond a single lease or company. The saga underscores ongoing concerns about procurement governance and the safeguarding of public resources in South Africa. Despite numerous reforms and policy commitments over the past decade, cases like this continue to emerge, suggesting that implementation gaps remain a persistent challenge. Each new controversy reinforces the need for robust systems that can prevent irregularities before they occur, rather than relying on corrective action after the fact. In this context, Macpherson's intervention can be seen as both a corrective and a symbolic act. By terminating the lease immediately upon confirmation of its illegality, the department has asserted its authority and signaled a lower tolerance for procedural breaches. Whether this approach becomes a consistent feature of public asset management will depend on how future cases are handled and whether internal accountability mechanisms are strengthened. The Pretoria West lease episode also raises important questions about transparency. Many of the concerns that ultimately led to the termination were first highlighted by external actors, including opposition lawmakers and journalists. This dynamic illustrates the continuing importance of independent oversight and a free press in identifying potential irregularities. It also points to the limitations of internal controls when they operate in isolation from external scrutiny. As the internal investigation proceeds, attention will likely focus on the decision-making chain that allowed the lease to be concluded without the necessary legal prerequisites. Identifying individual responsibility within complex bureaucratic structures is often difficult, but it is a crucial step in preventing recurrence. Without clear consequences, the risk remains that similar arrangements could be attempted in the future under different circumstances. Ultimately, the termination of the Medicare 24 lease linked to Vusimuzi Cat Matlala stands as a notable moment in the ongoing effort to restore integrity to public procurement and asset management. It reflects an acknowledgement that procedural compliance is not a technicality, but a fundamental requirement for lawful and ethical governance. While the full impact of the decision will unfold over time, it has already contributed to a broader national conversation about how public resources are allocated, monitored, and protected in South Africa.